I was just thanking, anyway, I started off without you. And I sold a lot of state secrets and a lot of very important things that were shared.
Это 28-й все-таки, смотри, полетел. Пошел! А он еще и ловушка.
I said Al-Qaeda would not be there. I said it wouldn't be there. I said we'd get help from the Taliban. What's happening now? What's going on? Read your press. I was right.
More than 1,400 flights canceled Sunday, 2,200 on Monday. Already, more than 1,600 canceled today.
Manhattan-bound L train derailed as it departed the Canarsie-Rockaway Parkway station in Brooklyn tonight. The MTA says the train was crossing from one track to another when a single axle with two wheels left the track, causing the fourth and fifth cars to separate slightly. Officials say everyone was evacuated safely and there were no reported injuries. Full service on the L line is expected to be restored by the Monday morning rush.
It's a pizza revolt after New York City officials threatened to crack down on coal and wood-burning pizza ovens, which, as every pizza fan knows, is the only way to make a great pizza. Under the proposed regulation, owners would have to spend as much as $20,000 to purchase a filtration system that cuts emissions by 75%. Even Elon Musk is weighing in. This is utter BS. It won't make a difference to climate change. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says restrictions on coal and wood-burning ovens has never been more clear than after what happened 3 weeks ago when smoke from Canadian wildfires engulfed the city.
The smoke from an outbreak of wildfires in Canada made the air quality in several U.S. cities among the worst in the world today. Chicago actually had the worst air quality this afternoon, while Minneapolis and Grand Rapids, Michigan, were also in the top 10 cities.
Our dispatch received a 911 call of a train accident in this area. The train was the Amtrak train 14 headed towards Seattle from Los Angeles. It had approximately 186 people on board, 14 of which were Amtrak employees. Additional injuries that were on the train, all 14 of them were of minor. One critical patient was the truck driver. When we initially got dispatched to a train derailment, we think of the trains on the side and severe injuries. In this case, we're very fortunate that the cars did not technically, roll over or go sideways, and I think that really reduced the impact to the passengers.
Hard to find. We're about a half mile downstream from the derailment, and these blobs of asphalt that are washing ashore are pretty big, and officials say that we are likely to see more of them because several of those submerged rail cars are still leaking asphalt. Multiple cars with molten sulfur and asphalt into the pristine Yellowstone River here.
Officials in downstream cities stopped drawing water from the Yellowstone, but say well water is safe.
Officials say they still don't know what caused that bridge to collapse or the train to derail or how long it will take to fix it. They say at this point they expect the environmental impact to be minimal.
When is Congress going to impeach President Biden for obvious corruption? So I guess people are interested in this question. We actually have a 2-track process for impeachment. I think the first is with Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. The second is with the President of the United States. Now, impeachment is serious. This is a serious charge against an official of our government if we go to that level. And we shouldn't cheapen it just because, of political getbacks, even though what happened to the former president was wrong and should not have happened. That you gotta have the evidence, you gotta have the facts. And I'll just tell you, from everything I've seen, we're close to having all the evidence we need.
To what extent has Vladimir Putin been weakened by recent events?
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he is
become a bit of a bri around the world. And it's not just NATO. It's not just the European Union. It's Japan. It's 40 nations.
President Biden, how involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't. And I don't know.
Were you?
No.
Do you think Vladimir Putin is weaker today than he was before all those events?
I know it was.
Will you give Congress your bank records, President Biden? Will you give
the
Congress of the inflation over?
Let me put it this way. I've been hearing every month it's going to be a recession next month. The consensus is 2/3 of the economists and the major leaders in the banks think we're not going to have a recession. I don't think we will either, but I tell you one thing. In addition to the prices that go into accounting what a recession constitutes, we're bringing down prices across the board for people. That's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Why no new policy announcements with the branding? With the Bidenomics branding?
Well, look, you guys branded it. I didn't. I never called it Bidenomics, and so I was asked the question, why did I?
Your economics team is calling it Bidenomics.
No, wait, let's get it straight. First time we're using the Wall Street Journal. Okay? I don't go around beating my chest.
No one's fucking about it. Yeah, goddamn right. I can't argue with your brothers outside the house. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, good to see you.
Have obtained what is expected to be a central piece of the government's case against Donald Trump. The actual audio recording of the former president talking as if he's showing a highly classified document on U.S. war plans against Iran with people not cleared to even know it exists, let alone what's in it. In a moment, only on CNN, you will hear what jurors will hear one day. The recording was made 2 summers ago, July 2021, at the former president's club in Bedminster, New Jersey. You will clearly hear the former president as he is speaking to several people. According to the special counsel's indictment, they include a writer working on Mark Meadows' memoir, the publisher, and 2 of Trump's staff members. The president was aware he was being recorded. It's the first time it is being played publicly.
These are bad, sick people.
That was your coup, against you.
Well, it started right at the beginning.
Like when Millie's talking about, you were going to try to do a coup. No, they were trying to do that before you even were sworn in. That's right. Trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Millie, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. It's pages long. Look. Wait a minute. Let's see here.
Yeah.
I just found. Isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this. You attack, and
Hillary would print that out all the time.
she'd send it. No, she'd send it to Anthony Weiner, the pervert. By the way, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was just saying because we were talking about it, and he said he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the papers. This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, right?
I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to
declassify.
Figure out
See, as president, I could have declassified.
Yeah.
Now I can't, but this is
classified. Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. It's so cool. I mean, it's so. Look, here and I have. And you probably almost didn't believe me, but now you believe me.
No, I believe
it's incredible, right?
No,
hey, bring some Cokes in, please.
He's showing them classified documents.
See, he's such a bad guy. They didn't care about what the documents said. The documents showed that the Joint Chiefs of Staff was trying to march us into war with Iran. So it's possible that this was maybe a draft of the book, and he was showing, going through the pages and saying, see, look at this. Like Mark Meadows had written something, maybe. They were able to search the home in New Jersey. Trump's team did cooperate with that one. Which is why you didn't know about it, right? Which is why it didn't make the news, because they cooperated. And they found no classified documents whatsoever in New Jersey. So they assumed that he used the New Jersey house like a vacation home where he went, he brought his stuff, and when he left, he took all of his things. So these documents apparently are nowhere to be found. They're not a part of the indictment. He's got the 31 indictment against him, and these are not in it. So was Trump telling the truth? Because he said
there was no document. That was a massive amount of papers and everything else talking about Iran and other things. And it may have been held up or may not, but that was not a document. I didn't have a document per se. There was nothing to declassify. These were newspaper stories, magazine stories, and articles.
Virgin Galactic has launched its first commercial flight to the edge of space. The 90-minute mission took off from New Mexico and flew 80 kilometers above sea level. The team of Italian researchers on board saw the Earth's curvature and experienced weightlessness. Virgin wants to start regular commercial flights in a new era of space tourism. Hundreds of enthusiasts have paid up to $450,000 for tickets.
Another teen takeover last night, this time in Bronzeville.
Hundreds of teenagers converged at a gas station at 31st and Michigan, looting the store and breaking windows.
Alaskans in Antioch are facing energy bills that many say are unsustainable for members of the community. The president of Alaska Light and Power, Darlene Holmberg, says the price increase for electricity is because of the average cost of fuel rising from $2.66 a gallon in 2021 to $5.39 a gallon in 2022, which is more than double the cost. But residents are saying they are now paying 4 times the price of previous bills. Dave Deal is a longtime resident of Antioch who says his bill jumped from $150 to nearly $600.
And there's no way anybody could afford this, especially the elderly people, people on low income. To my light bill went from like $250 a month to $1,000.
What exactly is left? It's clear that if a student feels that race has impacted their life in a deep and meaningful individualistic way, they could write an essay about that. And the court for a long time has said that schools can use diversity, the educational benefits of diversity, as a legitimate goal. And it does not appear, at least so far, that the court is taking that away. But to the extent that Harvard and the University of North Carolina and other schools have been going about it in a way that is not as narrowly tailored as this court believes that it should be. And so now it seems the next step there where we're going here is where people will be trying to find other ways to incorporate how race is meaningful in their lives, but again, not in the way that schools are doing it currently. It's going to be a reworking of the current system. If you want to at least explain how race is important to you, and the school wants to take that into effect as it tries to have a diverse campus and promote that. That's not wrong, but it's the way that schools have been going about it that the justices believe violates the law.
In a 6-3 decision, the court threw out the president's plan to cancel $430 billion in student loan debt for up to 43 million Americans. The conservatives' 6 justices said the administration and the Secretary of Education overstepped its authority in trying to cancel or reduce student loans without going through Congress.
What we encountered, or what the fire crews encountered, was lithium, an area of the building that was burning that was reported to involve lithium, which is water reactive. So one of the major problems that the fire department had was the extent that the fire had progressed by the time they arrived on the scene. By the time they got the call and arrived on the scene, no water was able to be applied because of the water reactive nature of the product. So the determination was made to allow that particular section of the building to burn, while in the meantime, the other parts of the building, firefighters and live workers went inside with forklifts and other equipment to remove over 200 drums of other material to a safe haven into another place of the building.
Airbnb is collapsing. Zillow released new data that shows that the United States is short by more than 4 million housing units. The study, which included both homes for sale and rental properties, reveals that the housing shortage in America is so severe that the number of Americans looking to move out on their own outnumbered available housing by nearly 2 to 1. Take a look at this chart from Zillow, which lists cities with the the worst shortages. New York tops the list with a housing deficit of more than 376,000 units. Los Angeles comes in at a close second with a shortage of nearly 334,000 houses or housing units. San Francisco, Boston, DC, and Seattle also top the chart with each in need of hundreds of thousands of housing units. Thanks to the explosion of remote work and super low interest rates on mortgages, housing availability and affordability took a massive hit during the pandemic. Keep in mind that homes were already in short supply to begin with. So demand rising sharply during the pandemic pushed the housing prices to record highs. During the pandemic, both rents and sale prices soared. In the last year, typical rents rose by close to 5%, up to $2,048 per month, while the value of a typical home jumped to nearly $347,000.
Long-awaited reckoning arrives as building loans come due at a time of scarcer credit. They take a look at a 20-story tower at 529 Fifth Avenue that they say stands out from the other buildings around Grand Central Station for the surreal pink designs of an Alice in Wonderland-inspired art exhibit installed to fill vacant retail space on its ground floor. It's also remarkable as one among a small number of towers that have recently changed hands, giving a clue as to the value of Manhattan's older offices now that the commercial real estate sector has emerged from a historic era of ultra-cheap money. Silverstein Properties sold the building 3 months ago for $105 million in price per square foot terms. That was even less than a plot of land across the street commanded in just 2015. We are seeing prices lower than they have been in 20 years. Imagine if your home value declined, lost all of its value that was obtained over the last 20 years. I'm not sure people have come to terms with how long the storm will hover and how much damage it will do.
As you can see here is a familiar story. San Francisco, San Jose, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, they got destroyed by work from home. Rising crime, cost of living, loss of amenities caused a lot of people to say, screw it, not worth it. Of course, Austin is high up on the list, so is Nashville. But it may surprise you to see Denver, Colorado is actually much higher up than Nashville. Other cities, Raleigh, Portland, Richmond, Dallas, Sacramento, Boston, Minneapolis, all had positive population growth from remote workers. Now let me insert the caveat to this I always give. Right now, it is not available to most people. In fact, remote work data shows that those who can work remotely have much higher incomes than average.
Back in 2018, you only had 6% of workers nationwide who were working remote. In 2023, you have more than a quarter, so 26% of workers who are now working remote. 66% of workers work from home at least some of the time. As I said before, this obviously had a huge impact on office space. Less than half of offices are occupied nationwide.
The bill, which is due to come into effect before the end of the year, is to force big tech platforms to cut deals with local media to essentially pay them to use snippets of their news on their sites. So even if this is simply a headline with a link to an article, the idea is that they'll cough up to use that because, of course, they've got lots of advertising that goes alongside this Google News content in particular. Last October estimated that the Online News Act would see digital platforms shell out about 330 million Canadian dollars a year to these news sites. That's about 230 million euros. But the platforms don't want to pay up. So they're playing the hardest hardball you can imagine, with Meta last week saying that it would block Canadian news sites in Canada on both Facebook and Instagram. And now, of course, Google doing the same on its search and Google News platforms.
There have been so far 421 arrests nationwide, more than half of them in the Paris region, with the majority aged between 14 and 18.
The protest began in a Paris suburb on Tuesday when a police officer shot dead a 17-year-old boy of North African descent during a traffic stop in Nanterre.
It remains unclear who exactly said the words and whether it was a threat to shoot. The lawyer for the victim's family, though, says the video is sufficient evidence that the officer is at fault.
The unrest quickly spread across France, fueled by accusations of police racism and wider discrimination against minority communities. Around 45,000 police officers have now been deployed on the streets. Hundreds of police were injured last night and more than 900 people arrested. Ministers asked for public transport across France tonight to be suspended, and some major events have been cancelled as the government tries to stop scenes like this taking place for the fourth night running.
Police arrested more than 700 people on the fifth night of unrest across the country. During last night's riots, the home of a Paris suburb mayor was ram-raided and set alight. Vincent Jeanbrun, mayor of the southern suburb of Les-les-Roses, said in a statement that his wife and one of his children were injured.
All according to a report by The Guardian. Now, Sunak has, according to them, regularly used disposable Pilot V fountain pens during his time as Chancellor and as Prime Minister. This includes taking notes with the same pen during cabinet meetings. But why is this concerning, though? Well, every handwritten note goes to the government archives or are used as evidence in independent investigations, such as the COVID inquiry. Opposition parties have termed this as another attempt to erase crucial documents which could have been used for government scrutiny. Labour Party accused the UK Prime Minister of being addicted to evasion.
Last year, the ruling that Rwanda was a safe country has now been overturned by a majority ruling by 3 judges here.
Judges have blocked government plans to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. The Court of Appeal in London ruled that the plans were unlawful. Rights groups and asylum seekers appealed an earlier decision by another court which gave the go-ahead for the controversial deportation policy.
If before it was illegal to obtain and share state secrets, and now it's illegal to share any document, data, materials or items related to national security or national interests, then what constitutes national security remains open to interpretation. Another change is the possibility for the police to use the internet to investigate suspected espionage cases remotely. Overall, though, a prominent China legal scholar told us that this revision simply codifies many existing practices.
31 people have been killed in a methane gas explosion in a disused gold mine in South Africa. The incident happened more than a month ago in the city of Welcome, but details are just coming out now. The miners were reportedly working illegally and are from neighboring Lesotho.
Over a dozen individuals hurt after an explosion at a Korean restaurant in Calapan, Oriental Mindoro. The restaurant was located in a mall, and the blast has reportedly affected nearby establishments. Authorities say the explosion may have been caused by a gas leak.
The world is divided. Clear military camps and alliances have taken shape. NATO is fighting Russia. The US and China are in a Cold War, and East Asia is emerging as their battlefront. Every day brings new headlines featuring warships, military stunts, and missiles. The latest one comes from Taiwan. 2 Russian warships sailed close to Taiwan. Not Chinese, Russian warships.
Летит очень низко. Только что был взрыв. Мама! Мама! Неосторожно! Мама! Пиздец, мама!
At the same time, though, Crystal, there have been signs of weakness from behind the Russian curtain. You've seen that the FSB dropped its investigation now. The FSB is a successor to the KGB, the security services, dropped its investigation into Prigozhin. That is very much seen almost as like, it's like a pass, right? You know, he no longer is an active and a wanted criminal inside of Russia. There are reports now actually coming out this morning that Prigozhin has actually landed in Minsk in Belarus, you know, verifying some of the exile reporting now that had come out there. Lukashenko and some of the behind the scenes in terms of how this will all happen is that it seems that the Wagner forces themselves will then be drafted into the Russian Ministry of Defense and come under the full command and control. So overall, this is a total loss for Prigozhin. But then on the Putin side, he did have to give something. The man who challenged his authority and came within 200 kilometers has lived to see another day. Now, will he see a few more days? We'll see.
A report suggests that General Sergei Sorokin is being investigated over possible links to the mutiny by the Wagner mercenary group. He's not been seen since Saturday morning when Wagner's short-lived rebellion started.
But do we know what's going on with some of the top generals? Were any of them involved in this?
I mean, the way you phrased the question, do we know? We don't know anything because we're thousands of miles removed. What I can say is that every indication is that there have been no arrests, that this is purely a psychological operation run by the Ukrainians. It's been picked up by mainstream media in the United States, and they've run with it. The frontage that Wagner fought on was a very small part of the overall battle. The rest of the war is being fought and won by the Russian army. So again, we need to put Wagner in perspective. The other thing we need to understand is that Wagner was 25,000 strong. Only 8,000 men went into Russia went into Rostov and moved on Moscow with Prigozhin. 17,000, including most of the senior commanders, remained behind and told Prigozhin to go to hell, that they're not going to commit treason. And this 17,000, I believe, have been absorbed into the Ministry of Defense, either as an individual capacity or in the case of some specialized units like a deep reconnaissance company, special assault companies. They would have retained their unit integrity, reformed as a volunteer unit, and be serving under the Ministry of Defense as a volunteer unit. So there's a large number of former Wagner soldiers fighting in Ukraine with the Russian army. 8,000 of them, however, will not be given this option, and they are going to either go home or go into exile in Belarus. Right now, there are 3 camps being built in Belarus, each one capable of housing up to 4,000 people, and the Belarus government and military have indicated that they will contract with Wagner to provide combat training to Belarusian forces to try and transfer some of the combat skills and knowledge that Wagner had. But notice what I'm saying, trainers. Wagner will not be fighting as part of the Belarusian military. Wagner will not be organized into combat units. He murdered 12 Russian service members, shooting down their airplane. And while he can't be charged with that, he can be charged with corruption, and they're investigating him. And here's the other thing. It appears he might have been colluding with Western intelligence. And if that's the case, that's high treason, that's a separate treason charge, and that's the one that they put a bullet in the back of his head for. So Prigozhin's days, we'll see. I can't guarantee any outcome, but if I were Prigozhin, I'd have trouble sleeping.
Paul Little bought Quick Pick tickets at this store in Massachusetts, but he accidentally left them behind when he completed his purchase, and prosecutors say the clerk kept them for herself.
Up next, we have 24.
Sure enough, one of his tickets was a winner. And 2 days later, authorities say the clerk went to Lottery HQ to claim the $3 million. But officials were suspicious when they saw these burn marks on the ticket.
You could not read the numbers, the winning numbers, and the ticket was torn.
Another red flag, inside the lobby of the lottery offices, the clerk allegedly began arguing with the guy who drove her about what his cut would be. When officials checked the store surveillance tape, they realized it was the customer who had actually bought the ticket. They posted flyers for the real winner to come forward. And Paul Little did just that. Today, the 57-year-old diesel mechanic finally collected his winnings.
Initially, I thought I'd just lost the ticket, like the tickets fell out of my pocket.
This little girl, now about to be 6 months old, was left inside a safe haven baby box located at Ocala's Fire Station 1. The temperature-controlled box is set up to sound an alarm to first responders once a baby is placed inside. Within minutes, the baby, now named Zoe, was in the arms of first responders in seemingly good health. The firefighter who discovered baby Zoe called his wife, letting her know what happened, given the couple struggled to adopt.
We've been trying for almost a decade to have a family, and everything has kind of just not worked out for us. So we're like, okay, don't get our hopes up, don't get our hopes up.
With a handwritten note to the doctor from the first responder, saying he and his wife would like to adopt the girl. To their surprise, they were given the green light to begin the adoption process.
Everybody was just in disbelief, honestly, that she was hand-delivered to us almost, and that everything had kind of worked itself out to where we could bring her home 2 days later.